gentlemen, Eddie Marcus here again. Got some stuff I want to share with you. Something I hope you can eat and get good. Everything I've tried, it never got me where I wanted to go. I got bounced around, up and down, side to side, but never there. And the question becomes why? I'm sure any of us could say these same words. But not just us, I believe that the nation has tried. And they never got where they wanted to go. Or did they? Yeah, it got tossed around, up and down, side to side, but never there. Why? I believe that the same why that comes from me is the same why that comes from the nation or anybody else. So I see that the problem that I have and the problem that the nation have is the same. And from that comes the question for me, why? And I'm sure that the same would be from the nation. Why? The question of it is then, after we say all these whys, then what is the answer? What is that? And I'm sure that the answer for the one is the same for the other. Not only that, the answer is readily available if and when it is wanted. The big thing as I see it is that a choice has got to be made. The choice has got to be made. And once that choice is made, it must be resisted. Any temptation. Any temptation. See, those things never leave. Just like your choice never leaves, the temptation never leaves. It's always there. The hang-up is that it's like sex. You know, there's a time you're not supposed to engage yourself in it. That's been set for one reason or another. But yet, once you have discovered something, once you've experienced something, then your choices change. But when you have experienced something like sex, and this is what I'm using as an example, this is what I'm using as an addiction for us who refuse to take that one thing that we've never tried. Because once we've engaged in stuff that has never worked for us and never tested the stuff that we've never tried, some way, somehow, we find ourselves addicted to something. And I use sex for an example because once you know what it is, you are never going to retire or want to retire from it, even when it works against you. Since I use sex, I say starting too early. Next thing you know, your parents have told you don't do this because they know the problems. But now you've tasted the waters, and they might as well be quiet. But what happens is you'll end up getting pregnant. Now, what's wrong with that? When you can't take care of yourself, let alone what you're going to bring into the world. That's what's wrong with it. And see, that might happen to an individual. That also happens to the nation. The nation finds itself engaged in abusing people, just like an individual would. Want to take advantage and prove themselves superior to others. Take others and rob them of everything that is legitimately theirs if they chose it. And issue that out to them as they are being used as servants and slaves for the benefit of someone else. And they pay them little bits of money. I'm talking about some places $15 an hour as if that's something. When you have the world, when everything in it belongs to you, you have already made it. When you allowed yourself to be in a system, well, see, this is what happens when you benefit from that. And to make a choice that you're not going to do that anymore and resist the temptation of doing it is not going to happen unless you come to the light, unless you become the light. And becoming the light gives you all of the authority to resist. I call that an awakening experience. And when you have the awakening experience, you take death as a tool that separates you from the darkness. See what happens if the nation awakened, then the heaven could be on earth. But since the nation did not awake, has not awakened, and they are so resentful of your awakening that they excommunicate you by kicking you out, you call this the divine birth. This is the divine birth. It is really something else. But I wanted to know if I got a little bit more time. I want to say this. Death is wonderful and beautiful. Don't ever forget that. The secret is you got to be ready. You got to be ready to accept the truth. You see, you got to become the light. And as soon as your light, as soon as your living, as soon as your effectiveness begins to spread and have its effect on that popular guy there, when it begins to increase, then your light will be stamped out. Always remember this. And death is only shunned by those that are not ready. They're living in darkness. They're living in ignorance. They're slaves. And such a one never lives here, because we're not living here. Here, we've given authority to prevent us from living. And since we don't allow ourselves to live here, we're not going to live there, because the same thing that is required to live here is required to live there. And preachers, I want you to know that the book, the Bible that you use, it is not designed for any individual to teach another. Everybody can read. But it is a guide for each individual as they recognize their role in life and their position as being walking in light or walking in darkness. When they know they're walking in the light, they know what they got to resist. And what they have to resist is anything that's outside of the light. And they're going to take them to some places that the darkness ain't going to go for that. But you look back in the book and find scriptures that justify exactly what you're doing. Exactly what you're doing. See, now your living is your preaching. Rather than up in the pulpit talking and think you know something, you go out there and live that. And the world will see exactly what you know and the consequences of it. That's your teaching. And when you go back in the book and refer to it as justification, they look in the book justification, it's an indication. It's the light spreading. Understand that. Now stop out there trying to teach somebody something, but the ABCs. Everybody know the ABCs. Oh boy, I want to thank you so very much for listening to me, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a moment in time when things were coming across my mind and they were so refreshing that I thought I'd share them with you. Until next time, Eddie Marcus, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people, say bye-bye.